Story 1. Picture a wave in the ocean. You can see it and measure its height, the way the sunlight refracts as it passes through. It is a wave and then it crashes on the shore and is gone. But the water remains. The wave was just a different way for the water to exist for a little while. This is one conception of death for a Buddhist. The wave returns to the ocean, where it came from and where it is meant to be. Story 2. Anger clouds the mind. When turned inward, it becomes an unconquerable enemy. I have always remembered this quote from my childhood. It resonated with me because it was quite profound for a movie that many boys my age watched in theaters in 1990. As I grew older and faced my own anger issues, I found this message to be especially meaningful. Story 3. We accept the love we believe we deserve. I don't really care for this movie, but that quote stayed with me. Story 4. The only time you should look in your neighbor's bowl is to make sure that they have enough. You don't look in your neighbor's bowl to see if you have as much as they do. Story 5. We have a saying in Tibet. If a problem can be solved, there is no use worrying about it. If it cannot be solved, worrying will do no good. Story 6. Frodo. I wish it need not have happened in my time. Gandalf. So do all who live to see such times. But that is not for them to decide. All we have to decide is what to do with the time that is given to us. Also, from a book, not a film, what is the most important step a person can take? The next step. Story 7. This quote helped me through a difficult period of depression, to the point where I considered suicide. I took it as a metaphor for the darkness I was feeling and a reminder not to give up. There was a light at the end of the tunnel and hope that things could return to normal. Sam, I know. It's all wrong. By rights, we shouldn't even be here. But we are. It's like in the great stories, Mr. Frodo. The ones that really mattered. They were full of darkness and danger. And sometimes you didn't want to know the end. Because how could the end be happy? How could the world go back to the way it was when so much bad had happened? But in the end, it's only a passing thing, this shadow. Even darkness must pass. A new day will come. And when the sun shines, it will shine more clearly. Those were the stories that stayed with you. They meant something even if you were too small to understand why. But I think, Mr. Frodo, I do understand. I know now. The people in those stories had many chances to turn back. But they didn't. They kept going because they were holding on to something. Frodo, what are we holding on to, Sam? Sam. That there is some good in this world, Mr. Frodo, and it's worth fighting for. Story 8. Until a man is 25, he still thinks, every so often, that under the right circumstances he could be the toughest person in the world. If he moved to a martial arts monastery in China and studied diligently for 10 years, if his family were wiped out by drug dealers and he swore revenge, if he got a fatal disease and had 1 year to live, devoting it to eradicating street crime, or if he simply dropped out and committed his life to being bad. Hero used to feel that way too, but then he encountered Raven. In a way, this is liberating. He no longer has to worry about trying to be the toughest person in the world. The position is taken. Story 9. Life moves pretty fast. If you don't stop and look around once in a while, you could miss it. It's so true. You have to appreciate the little things. Story 10. On It's a Wonderful Life, there is a framed quote underneath the photo of George's father that says, "All that we take with us is what we give away." I think about that a lot. Story 11. You are going to let one foolish person ruin your life. You are not the person I thought you were. Legally Blonde. Story 12. Deputy Wendell. This is turning into a significant mess, isn't it, Sheriff? Sheriff Ed Tom Bell. If it isn't, it will do until the mess arrives. Story 13. Be excellent to each other. It is not about live and let live, tolerating others, or treating others as you expect. It is about being excellent. Story 14. The way I see it, every life is a collection of good things and bad things. The good things do not always soften the bad things, but conversely, the bad things do not always diminish the importance of the good things. Story 15. Go that way really fast. If something gets in your way, turn. I know it is meant to be comedic, but it can be applied to life. Story 16. Perhaps he knew, as I did not, that the earth was shaped round so we would not see too far down the road. Out of Africa. Story 17. As a counterpoint to the quote everyone knows, here is Nemec's manifesto from Ander. There will be times when the struggle seems impossible. I know this already. Alone, unsure, dwarfed by the scale of the enemy. Remember this, freedom is a pure idea. It occurs spontaneously and without instruction. Random acts of insurrection are happening constantly throughout the galaxy. There are whole armies, battalions that have no idea that they have already enlisted in the cause. Remember that the frontier of the rebellion is everywhere. Even the smallest act of insurrection pushes our lines forward. And then remember this, the need for control is so desperate because it is so unnatural. Tyranny requires constant effort. It breaks, it leaks. Authority is brittle. Oppression is the mask of fear. Remember that. Know this. The day will come when all these skirmishes and battles, these moments of defiance will have flooded the banks of the Empire's authority, and then there will be one too many. One single thing will break the siege. Remember this. Try. Story 18. I am easy to make happy, and that is why no one cares if I am. This quote by Jerry Smith from the popular animated series Rick and Morty has stuck with me more than any other. Story 19. Gemma Simmons. I like to think about the first law of thermodynamics, which states that no energy in the universe is created or destroyed. Leo Fitz. And none is destroyed. Gemma Simmons. This means that every bit of energy inside us, every particle will become a part of something else. It may exist as a dragonfish, a microbe, or perhaps burn in a supernova 10 billion years from now. Every part of us now was once a part of something else. A moon, a storm cloud, a mammoth. Leo Fitz. A monkey. Gemma Simmons. A monkey. Thousands and thousands of other beautiful things that were just as terrified to die as we are. We gave them new life. A good one, I hope. Story 20. It's Andy from The Office. I wish there was a way to know you're in the good old days before you've actually left them. That hit me hard as it reminded me that the difference between enjoying a moment and feeling miserable can be as simple as being present and appreciating what is happening. I know I often fail to do this. This brings me to another quote I love. You live and learn. At any rate, you live. Story 21. A person is smart. People are irrational, panicky, and dangerous. This realization helped me understand that things can operate very differently at various scales. Story 22. There is a scene in Game of Thrones where Catelyn and the Blackfish are talking at Riverrun. Catelyn comments on how quiet it is there, and the Blackfish replies, "It often comforts me to think that even in war's darkest days, in most places in the world, absolutely nothing is happening. That is something I try to remind myself every time things start to look too grim in the news and all around us." Story 23. Get busy living or get busy dying. I didn't understand it until I hit rock bottom and had to put the bottle down for good. Story 24. The Secret of Life from City Slickers. One thing. Just one thing. You stick to that and everything else doesn't mean anything. Story 25. Fraser Crane is meeting with his mentor, Dr. Tewksbury. This accusation turned argument turned exercise in self-help was striking to me. It's funny and clinical for the first, and possibly only, time in the show's 11 seasons, and it's heartbreaking. There is one woman's laugh when he starts stalling that is eerily quiet for a few moments. I shed tears just watching it again for this post. This is what midlife looks like for more people than are willing to admit it. Story 26. You don't think I understand what I've seen out there? You don't think I wish I could tell you it was just one person to blame? It's not. We are all to blame. Steve Trevor. Story 27. You want to protect the world, but you don't want it to change. From Ultron, changed my entire perspective on superheroes. Superheroes are static, while supervillains are dynamic. It represents the tension between the status quo and change. Story 28. I realize now that the circumstances of a person's birth are irrelevant. It is what you do with the gift of life that determines who you are. From the same movie. Maybe if we started looking at what is the same instead of what is different, well, who knows? Story 29. A couple of years ago, I started having panic attacks, multiple per day, and they would paralyze me with fear of things I had barely even thought about. I received treatment, but for a long time I could barely do anything without triggering one. I began watching a lot of television just to distract myself. I credit the creators of Brooklyn Nine-Nine for almost single-handedly helping me through that time. I was watching Timeless, which is one of my favorite shows, for probably the sixth time. There's an episode where the main characters go back in time to the 1893 World's Fair and need Houdini's help. One character talks to Houdini and, as someone who is very claustrophobic, she asks him how he deals with the fear of not being able to escape one day. I rewound it several times to hear it again, and I don't think I'll ever forget it. He says, "Fear isn't real." When she questions him, he elaborates, "Fear isn't real. It's just your reaction to what's actually happening." I don't know. It just hit me hard. Did it cure me? No. But it was a constant mantra until I stopped having panic attacks. Story 30. It matters not how straight the gate, how charged with punishments the scroll. I am the master of my fate. I am the captain of my soul. Story 31. Life is like a box of chocolates. You never know what you are going to get. This lesson taught me to embrace uncertainty and highlights the importance of being open to life's surprises and possibilities. Story 32. You will do it because it must be done. You will do it because no one else can. You will do it because if you don't, opportunities will be lost. Story 33. So what I told you is true from a certain point of view. Star Wars. There are two things to consider. When I first watched it as a kid, I immediately understood that people have different perspectives on things. Even though my perspective is one thing, someone else can hold a different point of view on the same matter and reach a different conclusion. You have to consider all of this. Maybe you're wrong, maybe you're right, and perhaps, just perhaps, you're both right about it despite having different perspectives and outcomes. Sometimes, truth can be more complex than a single objective truth. Later, I realized that some people outright lie and hide behind pseudo-talk, half-truths, omissions, and wisdom that only serves to obscure the fact that they lied. I love the word certain in that context. It allows for perspective while also casting doubt on it. The delivery by Alec Guinness is perfect. First, he denies lying. Then there's a pause, and Obi-Wan effectively admits he lied. As a character, Obi-Wan is presented as a wise mentor. But in this moment, that portrayal is twisted into he lied and cannot even admit to it. Both points are valid takeaways from that quote, and they combine well in that line. Obi-Wan outright lied, but it can still be true from a certain point of view, even if it's false in general. All of this is summed up perfectly in the phrase, Jedi lie. Story 34. You either die a hero or live long enough to become the villain. As you grow older and make decisions that don't please everyone, you may find yourself as a villain in someone's story, regardless of your intentions. Story 35. The world is as you find it. Dick Cheney Vice. This quote is a thought-provoking statement on the paradoxical relationship between reality, perception, and perspective. To McKay's credit, it fits the script well. Story 36. We've all been raised on television to believe that one day we would all be millionaires, movie stars, and rock stars. But we won't. And we are slowly learning that fact. We are very frustrated. This statement carries even more weight today as social media influencers strive for success. The YouTube generation experiences highs and lows, and the past 50 years have been marked by greed, leading society to become disillusioned with the wage gap. Story 37. If they want to, they will. If they wanted to, they would have. Always remember that. People are not as complicated as they pretend to be. When they care, you will know. When they don't, you will be confused. There is no mystery in effort. There is no puzzle in priority. If someone truly wants you in their life, they make space, they make time, and they ensure you know it. If you are standing there wondering where you fit, then you do not. Do not beg. Do not wait for a ghost to turn around. Some people keep the door open just enough to keep you hoping. Alfie Solomon's Peaky Blinders. Story 38. You're asking me about a quote from a film that changed my perspective? Surely you cannot be serious. Story 39. Sucking at something is the first step toward being somewhat good at something. Story 40. Not necessarily the greatest quote I've ever heard, but do you think God stays in heaven because he fears what he created on earth? From Spy Kids 2. Story 41. You foolish individual, the fall itself will probably be fatal for you. Story 42. Now, I see that look in Mr. Pitt's eye, as if 19th century literature has nothing to do with attending business school or medical school. Maybe Mr. Hopkins agrees, thinking, yes, we should simply study Mr. Pritchard, learn our rhyme and meter, and quietly pursue other ambitions. I have a little secret for you. Gather around. We don't read and write poetry because it's cute. We read and write poetry because we are members of the human race, and the human race is filled with passion. Medicine, law, business, engineering. These are noble pursuits necessary for sustaining life. But poetry, beauty, romance, love, these are what we stay alive for. To quote Whitman, "Oh me, oh life," of the questions of these recurring, of the endless trains of the faithless, of cities filled with the foolish. What good amid these, oh me, oh life? Answer, that you are here, that life exists and identity exists, that the powerful play goes on, and you may contribute a verse. What will your verse be? Story 43. Every time someone steps up and expresses their identity, the world becomes a better and more interesting place. Story 44. I do not change my perception based on popular entertainment designed to evoke emotions and last only 2 hours. Story 45. I don't change my perception based on popular entertainment that exists to evoke emotional responses and is over in 2 hours. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.